Hello, my friend. This is Pat Boone, and just like you, I'm listening to On Faith Edge with Joe Taylor.
It seems to me that love is really something that brings people together. No matter what differences we have, what sides we're on, whenever we come from a place of love, it unites people.
Well, hello. Thank you, Pat Boone, for the introduction. I certainly appreciate you, my friend, and your support of the show. Welcome to the 131st episode of On Faith's Edge. My name is Joe Taylor, recovering atheist and your servant in Jesus Christ. This is your place to hear conversations about God and living a life of faith in Jesus Christ. My very special guest today is the multi-talented Carla Bianco. Carla is perhaps best known from her role as Maureen in the Tony and Pulitzer Prize-winning musical Rent. Of course, on Broadway, she was discovered by the legendary music producer and manager John Jellybean Benitez. He worked with Madonna, Barbra Streisand, Paul McCartney, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Sting, and some other lightweights. Well, Jellybean Benitez ultimately signed her to a management contract and a publishing deal while she was still in college. And from there, she only went on to become an ASCAP award-winning #1 Billboard chart-topping songwriter. Her newest faith-focused music project, You Love Me As I Am, has me really excited. Her powerhouse vocals, coupled with a soft, gentle presence, it's really something special to hear. I really appreciate this work. In our conversation, you'll hear the letters to God that guided her path, the source of her tenacity, and what a story that is, and a sampling from the project You Love Me As I Am. Carla, thank you so much for coming in. I certainly appreciate you being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Joe. It's great to be here.
Yeah. I've been listening to your stuff and looking at the work you've done, and pretty impressive career so far, Carla.
Oh, well, thank you. It's been a great time. It really has.
So you worked with Jellybean Benitez.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
Just so you know, folks, if you've not heard of Jellybean Benitez, he produced Madonna, worked with Madonna, Barbra Streisand, Paul McCartney, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Sting, and a few other unknown people, right? So this is no slouch. This guy knows the business, and he knows what's going on. And you were determined that he was the person to move you forward.
Yeah, it was something. Right when I moved to New York, I was going to NYU. I was 20 years old, and it was spring break, and everybody was going to the beach or doing that sort of thing. And I don't know, I thought I have a week off from school. I'm going to take advantage of this time. And I remembered a friend said that Jellybean Benitez was always looking for new talent. So I thought maybe I'll just find out where he works, and I'll just wait for him and introduce myself and maybe play him a song. So that's what I did. I went to 57th Street and Broadway where his office was, and I waited for him for 3 days. And I really didn't even know what he looked like because he was a producer. There wasn't a lot out there in terms of like visually. I just had his album cover, and I talked to the security guard, and he said he always wore a black suit and white tennis shoes, and he came in around 11 o'clock. So on the third day, I was sitting there, and I looked down the street, and this guy comes walking down the street and has a black suit on, white tennis shoes. So he walks past me, and I thought, oh, wow, what if that's him? So I run into the building, and I yell his name, Jellybean, and it's echoing in this big marble lobby in this big office building, Jellybean, Jellybean. And he stops, and I just look at him, and I say, hi, my name's Carla Bianco. I've been waiting for you for 3 days. Can I have 10 minutes of your time? I just want to show you what I can do. And he's staring at me. And then all of a sudden he puts his hands up and like gives me the, come with me kind of gesture. And so I go with him into the elevator, and we go up to his office, and I sat down at the piano and played a song that I wrote, and I gave him my demo. And a week later he called me to a meeting to his office and offered me a production deal and a management deal and a publishing deal as a songwriter. And he put one of the songs that I wrote on his next record. And that's how I broke into the music business.
One of your songs hit #1 on Billboard charts.
Yeah. The Lover That You Are. It's a dance song. I had written it with David Morales, who was a big DJ. He still is in New York, and producer, songwriter. And they had asked me, Jelly Bean and his sister, who ran the publishing company, asked me if I could write with David Morales. So we wrote a few songs together. And I was living in this women's residence called Jeanne d'Arc Residence in Chelsea in New York. And I literally wrote that song in like 20 minutes, was in my room and wrote it and didn't think much of it. It just came out really easily. And it was years later that Jelly Bean called me and said that Pulse had covered it. And a few weeks later, he called me and said it was like number 10 and number 3. And then he called me and said, the song's #1 on Billboard dance charts. I said, oh, you're kidding. And it just now is called like the song that never dies, because so many people have remixed it and it's played all over the world. And it was just really one of those happy surprises.
What a feeling it must be when you kind of accidentally hear that song, right?
Yeah, it is. It's neat.
Yeah,
for sure.
You've been a quote unquote professional, Carla, for a long time. You had your first singing gig, quote unquote singing gig, at 4 years old.
I did. I used to sing for my neighbor, Philadelphia Freedom by Elton John. I would go to her house and she'd ask me to sing, and I'd sing that song and she'd give me brownies. Well, there was a graduation party next door. My parents were there. So I went down to the party, and my neighbor, who would always give me the brownies, she was there as well. And she said, Carla, why don't you sing for us? So I just, broke out into song, singing my song that I always sang. And somebody grabbed a styrofoam cup and passed it around, and everybody put money in it and gave it to me. And I remember holding that cup, walking home and thinking, this is so cool. Like I could totally do this for the rest of my life. Like it was just such a fun moment, just an affirmation at 4 years old. So I'll never forget that.
Can you look back at that memory? Do you remember that time, or is this a story that your parents have told you or your neighbors have told? Do you remember that?
I do.
Oh, that's so cool.
I do remember it. I do. I don't remember the whole scene, but like bits and pieces. And I especially remember that moment of holding that cup and walking up the hill, like right to my house, and just standing in front of everybody and singing. At
4 years old, you're like, ooh, I like this. Little change in the cup. That's so cute.
Yeah.
That is cute. We're going to talk in a few minutes here about your new musical project, Carla, but I do want to touch on a passion project of yours, Hearts on Fire.
Yes.
Tell us about your work with Hearts on Fire and why that's so important to you.
It came out really at the same time that this shift happened into singing and writing Christian music. And I'm probably answering a different question at the same time. But I did have this moment when I went on a retreat, really feeling God's love in my heart. And it transformed me. It was one of those life moments. And from there, when I came home from that, I just had this whole new perspective on why I was living. Everything that I was doing was for God and for the glory of God, and to share the love that I felt that He has for all of us. And Hearts on Fire was happening at the same time. I wanted and felt that calling to do something for others through music and through art. So a friend of mine who I had grown up with, we reconnected, had lunch, and her name's Carrie. We were totally on the same page about this idea of working with youth, doing visual arts and music and writing and sharing some type of theme, a godlike theme, whether it's kindness or compassion or that message of that we are loved, and in through the art activity. And so we started doing some workshops, and it just started to grow. And now we're in this new space. We just had an open house for this, and we are working as a nonprofit and starting these programs for youth that are in the Pittsburgh area in marginalized communities that we're just bringing together. And it was just felt to me something that was really important. And art is such a great way to share and express these important themes.
So is Hearts on Fire necessarily faith-based?
There's 2 different tracks. There's this Hearts on Fire track that's more faith-based for somebody or family or youth that wants to delve into scripture and connect that into an art activity. But then we have another track that's Arts of Kindness program, and that's more just around these themes of love or compassion or doing something kind, like these acts of kindness, and expressing those themes through an art activity. So that program could go, even in a public school. So we've really made it for everyone, so everyone feels comfortable, and there's something for everybody.
So the whole idea of Hearts on Fire is you lift people up and you bring people along through creativity, through music, through art, and just the creative process. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. It's just expressing those good themes that we need to snowball more of in life, because life is just full of obstacles and difficulty every day. We're coming across all kinds of things in small ways and big ways. And those can snowball in their own way, just causing anxiety and just dealing with people with mental health issues. And there's just a lot of that today because it's just tough. It's a tough time, even with the pandemic and everything that's going on around that. This is a way to snowball something good, like a chain reaction of good. And so when you create something, you can then give it to somebody and then brighten their day too.
Let's talk about You Love Me As I Am. I tell you, I listened to this song and I was really touched by it, Carla. This song is beautiful. You Love Me As I Am. The bold sound coupled with such a delicate texture. It's inspiring, Carla. It is. This is you're 5 musical projects in. Is that right? You have 5 releases at some level, about 5 musical projects.
In terms of like CDs and things like that.
CDs, EPs, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, there's maybe you may be right.
Yeah, I mean, because I am right.
Yeah,
tell my wife.
So. Will you? I will do that.
So you're 5 musical projects in. I counted them. I went on Amazon and counted them. As long as Amazon's right, I counted them. You're 5 musical projects in. But You Love Me As I Am is your first contemporary Christian project. And like I said, the song itself is beautiful, just bold and delicate. It's really got an inspiring sound. But why this project right now?
Well, I was starting to tell you a little bit about that time. And I know it was over 5 years ago, but that I went on that retreat and something just happened to me. A healing happened inside my heart like never before. A weight that I had carried with a lot of, I guess we all do in some way, shape, or form, a lot of self-condemning thoughts. Just things that weighed me down of thinking I'm not good in all kinds of ways, especially giving each other that grace whenever we disagree and trying to come from a place of acceptance and love instead of judgment and separation. I mean,
we need to connect again, don't we? We need to connect.
We do. Yeah. We do. We need to connect. Absolutely. It's one of the songs on the EP is Love is the Answer. It's exactly what you're saying. I mean, it is, I think it's the only answer.
How do you hope your listeners and your fans are impacted by your music now, especially this turn to a more spiritual side?
I hope, especially with this single, that when they hear it, something really rings true in their heart and in their soul, that they are completely loved by God. and that it's just an undeniable love that will never, ever go away. And that it's the truest, very true, and that they feel it in such a way that it renews them, that it inspires them, brings new hope into their lives, and gives them the inspiration to share that with someone else, that they are loved and that they can share it with someone else. That's what I'm hoping comes with that song, and just really with the whole EP, that it leaves them with a feeling of inspiration and hope for the future.
Let's take a listen to You Love Me As I Am by Carla Bianco. Where did that tenacity come from, Carla?
Well, I have to say, I think it's from my parents, because my dad came to this country with nothing and didn't even know the language, and had two sons already. And he came over first on his own for a year and got a job, and then called my mom and brothers to come over, and they came over on the boat. And, it started with nothing with my mother, and me and my sister were born here. But they just made this whole new life for us. I really had to have that tenacity with him to kind of convince him to get me a piano and to get me piano lessons and voice lessons, and always kind of fighting my way to pursue music, and proving that it was something that I could make a living at and do. So my mom and dad, coming from Italy, were really trying to, integrate into America and build this life here, and raising their children to do something that was just a little bit more, I don't want to say, but like safe, like a real job where you go to college and you definitely get a job and make good money and can build a life and get married, have children. And I was having this passion for music, and it was just this uncertain kind of life. And it just became just a struggle that I would have with my dad in terms of wanting to pursue that, and him not wanting me to do that necessarily. And so we went through a lot of back and forth and a lot of conflict with that. And it was just hard as being a kid, especially whenever you were writing songs and creating and putting something out for the first time, just playing the piano and singing in my basement, wanting approval of that, I guess.
So your parents wanted you to be a lawyer or a doctor or some kind of professional, some kind of American dream type of life. Exactly.
And then what I was wanting to do didn't fit into that picture.
Did you ever gain that approval, that acceptance?
I would talk to my friends and they would say, "Oh, your dad, he's so proud of you." I'm like, I wish you would tell me that. I guess I didn't really, really know it. And this might sound kind of sad until my dad passed away. Because it's a funny thing if you have a parent pass away, and maybe a loved one in general, but all of the stuff that was difficult just like disappears, and all that came over me looking out in the backyard at his garden that he grew was just this wash of love. I just felt this wash of love come over me, that he always loved us so much. It was always there. And sometimes you just can't really feel it or see it whenever you do have conflict with someone, but it's there. It was underneath it all. And it didn't really hit me until then.
We put up these silly walls sometimes to the people that are closest to us because of our own egos, because of our own desires, our own drive. And once we realize that none of that's important, but it's love in a relationship, we make that
Absolutely.
complete turn. Can we talk about your personal faith?
Sure.
How did you come to believe in Jesus Christ?
That's a question I don't think I've ever asked myself.
Did you grow up in it? Let me ask you this way. Did you grow up in a Christian family?
I did. I guess that was something I always knew, because like I said, my parents are from Italy, so they were raised Catholic. Mm-hmm. And then we were too. And my mom was, she had pictures of Jesus, and, we went to church every Sunday. She taught us all about Jesus since we were little. We were just raised into it, really.
But was there a time in your adult life that you took a step back and you said, yeah, I really believe this stuff about God?
I had my own personal relationship with God and with Jesus since I was little. I really am thankful for that. I don't know how that came, but it existed, because I used to write letters to God. And especially in that I was kind of felt on my own with that desire to do music, use those talents. And like I said, I kind of was fighting my way to prove to my dad, especially, that was something that I could do. I was in my room a lot, writing and singing, and I would write letters to God and call him my best friend and tell him these things through a letter and through prayer of, like, I really want to do music, and this is challenging, and how am I going to do this? And I would always pray that I wanted to do God's will. I thought, I have these talents, and there must be something, a reason for them, of what he wants. And that was always my prayer. And that was all through my school years. Even before I had to make my move to New York, which that was something that I was alone in as well. I just a little story there, that I was going to college nearby my house. And I originally went for journalism because my parents, like I said, weren't so keen on the whole performer idea, that I went for journalism for 1 week and then saw everybody in the studios dancing and singing. And I switched my major to musical theater. And pretty much as time went on, my parents got to know that, and they were okay with it. I really think all along the way, they wanted to know that I had the courage and desire, and really was going to see it through to do what was necessary in terms of making something happen with music, because it's so competitive and difficult. Whenever I had to move to New York, I had that idea. I applied to NYU because I thought, well, it's college. Maybe my parents will go for that. And I did it in secret. Like, I didn't tell anybody that I was applying. And I applied to the jazz vocal department because it was something that you could do without auditioning in person. You could just send a recording. So I learned how to sing jazz. I worked with a jazz teacher, and it was me and God through this whole process. I was just praying and writing letters about it. And, Lord, if this is something you really want me to do, to go to New York. And then I got accepted and told my sister and my brothers first, and they supported me, and they came with me to go to my mom and dad. And then it was a miracle. They said, okay. And I was able to go. But through that whole process, even through New York, of going to wait outside Jelly Bean's office, all of those things that required overcoming fear and being courageous, it was God the whole time, always by my side. Like I said, I called on my best friend, and it was always that prayer of, whatever your will is, I want your will to be done. And I stayed close through this whole journey.
Most people look at God as this, even believers still look at God as this entity, this guy out there. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is your relationship with God is as this friend, this best friend, walking side by side with you, helping you recognize opportunity and things like that. Is that right?
That is right. That is right. As an artist, you spend a lot of time in solitude. You know, you're writing, you're practicing, you're singing. I would spend hours in my basement when I would come home from school. Like 4 hours, I'd get my homework done right away, and I'd be down in the basement putting on whole shows. I'd be at the piano writing songs, and then I put the record player on, and I was doing whole performances for imaginary audiences. And when you spend that kind of time like that in solitude, it's the relationship with God. I don't know. It just seems more tangible because you're having that quiet time, and you really need to kind of be still, that be still and know that I'm God. It's when you have that time like that you're alone, you feel his presence even stronger. And I feel really blessed to have felt him all along like that.
Because of your professional experience, I mean, you had a major role in Rent on Broadway. You've been in a couple major motion pictures. Of course, your singing career, your work with Jelly Bean. Was there ever a time, or have you had a time where you questioned your faith, or you're wondering where God is and what are you doing with me, God?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember whenever I had been in New York with my publishing deal with Jelly Bean, I was working so hard trying to, even though I had met him, you still, you're trying to get out there and get a record deal and make the music, record some records and all that I wanted to do, and plugging away, and a lot of opportunities falling through and things not working out, and writing more songs. And that went on for a good 5 or 6 years, really working so hard and like, Lord, when is something going to break? And I left New York and moved to Los Angeles. And at that time, I just hit this really kind of dark period where I was mad at God because I had prayed to him, and I brought me to New York, and it seemed like these doors were opening, but then all these obstacles were happening. And I wrote a lot of songs at that time about my past and some of the difficulties with my dad, things that I felt about my childhood that were hard, and songs to God too, just expressing the confusion and the anger. And I just got to a place where I just kind of all let it go. I was just like, God, I have no idea. I have no idea what you want me to do. And it was at that time that when I was in that, I swear, the darkness before the dawn, like that is a thing, because I was in that like a rock bottom type of place. And then my friend called me from New York and told me about this show, Rent, and said that there was this part that was perfect for me. And I said, oh, I don't know. I'm writing my music. I'm not really pursuing musical theater, even though that's what I majored in. And then I went to a bookstore later that day, and I opened up a magazine, and there was the ad for the auditions in Los Angeles that they were doing the West Coast premiere. And I thought, oh, wow, that's interesting. She told me about it. And then I saw that. I thought maybe I should go. So I did. I brought my boombox, and I sang a song that I wrote, one of those kind of angry songs that I was going through that period. And they called me back 7 times for this part. And I ended up landing this part in Rent and had no idea really what I was getting into in terms of the impact that show had on people. I mean, I had listened to the show and was crying listening to it because it's such a beautiful theme about love. You know, the big song from that show is Seasons of Love, and about living in the moment and really appreciating what we have in the moment, because you never know when somebody may be gone or that moment is gone. Once I took the part and went into this whole other realm of entertainment and let go of all the songwriting and everything, just this whole new world opened up, and it was the most amazing, unexpected gift and experience that I had ever had. And then I was renewed in my faith at that time, because I saw that was part of the journey, that hitting that bottom like that and going through that darkness, that God never did leave me, and that it was okay to express all that stuff, that he knows, you know, that we're human beings and we're living this human condition that's filled with so many disappointments and difficulties and obstacles and death and disease, and he knows that. And we're not supposed to act like, oh, it's all great. We have to express our emotions. That's why I think that art is so important, because art is a place where if you can't express your emotions verbally, like in just talking to somebody, you can make something. You can put your hands on a drum and drum it out. You can write something. You can put paint on a paper, a finger paint, and get it out and move through it. I think we are to express how we feel, but God never leaves us, and we do go through those ups and downs like that. But to me, it's like the death and resurrection of Christ in our experiences and in our day to day, in our seasons of life.
This is so profound, Carla. God knows that you're angry. God knows that you're sad. God knows that you're confused. God knows that you're angry at him. Mm-hmm. He knows that you're confused about what is he doing with your life. He knows all this, and it's okay to express this to God, right? It's okay to be angry with God and let him know you're angry and confused and sad and disconnected. That is so profound, Carla, that many Christians, many believers won't accept that it's okay. God knows. God gets it. He's God, right?
Right. You know, God wants us to come to him honestly. I don't think he expects us to put on for him. You know, he knows our hearts.
Carla, what would you say to that person that is right on faith's edge? Maybe a fan of yours, maybe somebody that knows your music and knows your career, and that person's about to make the choice to believe or not to believe in God. What would you say to that person?
I would say, talk to God about it. The God that you think that might be out there, maybe you're not sure, give it a try and talk honestly about what you're thinking, what your concerns are, what you don't believe, where your doubts are, and talk about it. Write it down and see where it takes you. Maybe talk about it with a friend too, and see where it leads. And if you take that chance and act and have that will, like to say, you know, I want to believe, try it. See where that goes. Because honestly, it's only going to go to a good place to take a step of courage in that direction.
I don't think we can say anything more than that. The project is You Love Me As I Am, and it is beautiful. This song is wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us, Carla Bianco. I certainly appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Joe. It was great to be here.
Take care. God bless.
You too.
Carla's website is carlabianco.com. That's CarlaBianco.com, carlabianco.com, where you can find out more about her projects, what she's working on, and this beautiful project, You Love Me As I Am. I'll put her website, links to her music, and her social media links in today's show notes at onfaithsedge.com/131. That's onfaithsedge.com/131. And if you want to contact me, I am most active on Twitter at @4JoeTaylor, or you can contact me at onfaithsedge.com/contact. That's onfaithsedge.com/contact. I love bringing you engaging conversations about faith. If this show entertained you, if it encouraged you, if it informed you in any way whatsoever, brings value to your life, will you consider financially backing the show? The best way you can do that right now is to use any Amazon link at onfaithsedge.com. I'm going to get a modest commission from the purchase, but it doesn't cost you a penny more. Well, that'll wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for Carla Bianco for being with us, and thank you so much for listening. You mean a lot to me, and you mean a lot to this show. God is real. He loves you, and so do I. God bless.